Good morning, breakfast with bacon fans on the TV screen, whatever we call it these days, is Father Thomas Morrow. I have to tell you, you who've been watching me know that I'm all about gender, communication, marriage, saving marriages, brain differences. I talk the facts of relationships, spiritual, physical, so on and so forth. As a matter of fact, for those of you that don't know, I used to teach communication between the sexes at the university here in Virginia Beach, as well as other courses. So I'm always critiquing books. And when I got this book of Father Morrow's, I knew I had to have them. It's called Achieving Chastity in an Unchaste World. Okay, maybe it sounds boring to you. Yeah, how do I do that? Didn't sound boring to me, but when I went into it, not only was that teaching us how to be chastity, he, like me, gives you practical ways of doing the things he tells you to do. And I just was sold. It's a very small book, just hand sized, but it is packed full of great stuff. I haven't even said this stuff to Father Morrow yet, so he's hearing me say this for the first time. Father, welcome to my podcast. I am so excited to talk about this book because it's not just another spiritual, love Jesus and fight the good fight kind of book. This is talking about hookups. This is talking about the things, why we shouldn't masturbate, how you can stay chaste. I'm going to go through it. I have some highlighted stuff. It's really meaty, and I like this. Meat, meaning M-E-A-T-Y. It's a thick book full of great stuff. So first of all, welcome to Breakfast with Bacon. Thank you for writing this book. What on earth caused you to write on this topic?
Good. Okay. So I'm sorry. I was saying thank you when you said something. What did you say?
I'm so sorry. Well, I know I gave such a long bio there, but you wrote this book, Achieving Chastity in an Unchaste World. And from a priestly perspective, we expect our priests to tell us to stay chaste. It's a virtue. But you wrote this with specific examples of hookups, statistics on hookups. What happens when a woman has premarital sex or sex not with her husband? What happens to her body? What happens to her mind? You cite studies. It is really, really rich. What, as a priest, caused you to want to write this book?
Okay. So good question. The idea appeared to me when I was actually at a courage conference. Courage, as everybody may know, is a group that promotes chastity among people that have same-sex attraction. So I was at a conference. I led a courage group for 10 years in Washington. And it occurred to me that we need a book that explains people exactly how to live chastely and what procedures they can follow to strengthen themselves to live chastely. So I started the book. I wrote it. I sent it to a publisher, a Sunday Visitor, and they wrote back and said, "Yeah, that's good, but make it longer." So I made it longer. I sent it back to them, and they say, "Well, that's good, but there's too much psychology in here." And I don't see how you can write a book like this without psychology. But anyway, so they said, but we're going to send you back the advance. You can keep the advance, the $2,000. I said, great. And then I sent it to my friends in New Hope, Kentucky, Catholics United for Life, and they agreed to publish it, but they said, we don't do any marketing. So I said, well, let's just publish it. And they published it. And then more recently, they agreed with Sophia Press to pass on the publishing rights to Sophia. And Sophia picked it up. And Sophia has just come out with the re-release of this book that's been out there for about 10 years, maybe.
I didn't even realize it'd been out 10 years. This seems like it was just written for today. Father, let me just go to some of the highlights I have. So you cited, it says, just coming to these conclusions. Okay, so you started in the 1960s, women began to agree more and more to men's sexual requests and thus began to be treated worse. So this isn't a chapter where you're saying the sexual revolution came in and told women, you can be control your sexuality, do whatever men do. You can pick who you want to have sex with, how you want to have sex with them, so on and so forth. So as women started to say, yeah, I'm going to be more like a man, I'm going to do this. In this particular chapter, you're saying by the early 70s, many women had had enough with the feminist revolution, and the feminist revolution began in earnest. Let me read it. The leaders did a marvelous job of identifying the problem, but their solution was far worse than the problem. They decided that women could be just like men, asking men out if they wanted, paying for dates if they chose, and exchanging and engaging in lots of sex as long as they could have abortions to cover their mistakes. Unfortunately, women can't enjoy casual sex without doing violence to their natures. This trend made the breach between the sexes even deeper. And here I'm getting to the end of what I wanted to quote. The divorce rate has doubled since 1960, and some estimates claim that as many as 50% of the women of the National Organization for Women are lesbians. And so their version of feminism isn't working. It almost like a sarcastic quote you put in here. It's a contemporary writer you were citing, Danielle Crittenden, which she wrote in an article called What Our Mothers Didn't Tell Us, Why Happiness Eludes a Modern Woman. I'm going to stop with this. She said, and you cited, the woman who comes of age today quickly discovers that she enjoys a guarantee of sexual equality, the right to make love to a man and never see him again, the right to be insulated and demeaned if she refuses a man's advances, the right to catch a sexually transmitted disease that might, as a bonus, leave her infertile, the right to an abortion when things go wrong, or as it may be, the right to bear a child out of wedlock. Indeed, all the promises made to us about our ability to achieve freedom and independence as women, the promise of sexual emancipation, may have been the most illusory. When I read that, I'm like, yeah, this is spot on. This is what we thought we were getting. And it's like, why would I want that? Anyway, that was just one really powerful moment in the book. I'm attracted to this kind of work because I see the destruction to men, to women, to children. Why were you attracted to this kind of work? Because I know you just said you started with encourage or courage. They go together.
Not only did I work, I have a courage group, but I also had a young adult group, a young single Catholic group that would meet every month and pray together and discuss the faith. And I knew this was a big issue with them. So what I did was, and this was actually before I wrote this book, I wrote a book in about 2003 titled Christian Courtship in an Oversexed World. And this was a big issue in our women's group and our men's group. And it's kind of funny because we went on a trip to Mount St. Mary's, and on the way back, we stopped for dinner at a friend's house. And the two of the women were talking to each other in our women's group, and they said, Father insists on having chastity part of this group. And I don't know if it'll work. And the other one said, I don't know if it'll work either. And a few months later, one of them was totally on board with chastity and modesty, and the other one was telling her boyfriend, "We're not having sex anymore until we get married." And so they got it. But if I had started a group for Catholics, for single adults, and didn't include chastity, it would have fizzled out really fast. It would have been nothing, because you can't. You have to give people the whole faith. Can't give them half the faith. So people want that.
Yeah.
Even though they didn't like it, they want it.
They do want it because it's truth. I'm just so called to this field. I'm a married woman. I have my children, my grandchildren. I've had to deal with all the problems of the sexual revolution myself. My husband and I were separated for 4 years. While I was going to pursue a divorce, we reconciled, just had 42 years together now. Am I not loud enough, Father? Okay.
You're not. Keep
So,
going. I heard you.
okay. But one of the things that people say that frustrates me, and I know what I'm thinking is the answer, but I'm going to ask you. They're like, what does a priest know? Why would a priest know anything about chastity or how to remain chaste or the issues married and single dating people have to deal with? He's a priest. Now, it sounds silly, but I want to know your answer because I'm sure you must have heard it as well.
Yeah, when I wrote the book on courtship, I sent a copy to my sister for her daughters, and her husband said, "What's your brother writing a book on courtship? What does he know about courtship?" And my sister was very sharp. She answered, "You know, he dated more women than you did," and that's true. I dated until I was 33 years old. Went into seminary at 34. So I dated a lot of women over the years through high school, college, after college, and so on. Lived on the beach in Southern California, so I had a lot of experience. But I, even if I hadn't had experience, I would go with Benjamin Franklin, who said, "Experience is the best teacher, but only a fool can learn no other way."
Mm, I never heard that. That's perfect. We have to be able to learn without making those mistakes.
Sorry?
We have to be able to learn without making those
Amen.
mistakes.
Amen.
Yeah.
And one priest, when people tell him you don't have experience, he said, "I've never experienced cancer, but I know I don't want it."
Exactly. I say that all the time. I'm like, okay, you've never had a baby. Tell me if you know if it hurts or not. You know? Yeah. So tell me some of the things that you think people need to know about chastity. I think maybe that's a better way to go instead of all the highlights that I have of this is really, really rich.
Okay, so um, what happens when people come to confession, and sometimes they come to confession and they're more or less addicted to pornography and masturbation. And I tell them, okay, we have a way to promote this, to approach this. Um, what happens is the mind says, "I don't want this." And the heart says, "I got to have it." So what's the solution? The solution is to convert the heart. How do you convert the heart? This is from Thomas Aquinas, from Aristotle, from Pope John Paul II. You have to convince the heart by reminding yourself over and over again of the reasons why it's better to be chaste. And Aristotle said you have to treat the appetite politically. I said that to one seventh grader, and he says, "Does that mean you have to lie to it, Father?" I said, "No, that's not what it means. It means you have to convince it and give the reasons for being chaste." And so I give them a little card that has all these reasons on it. And I'll give you some of these reasons now if you wait.
I would like
Uh, Sex is holy, not a plaything, should never be trivialized. That's our origin. Sex is where we all came from. Created in the image and likeness of God, I could live by reason, not by urges, which the animals do. Uh, People are to be loved, not merely used as objects of enjoyment, as Pope John Paul II clearly pointed out. Um, Unchaste activity destroys my most precious friendship, that with God, the source of all happiness. Unchaste activity brings pleasure, but not happiness. And there are probably more reasons than that, but those are the only reasons I give them on the card. And I say, I want you to read this card 4 or 5 times a day for several months. And I give them a leaflet that people can find on our website of two guys that said, "We overcame lust." One guy was falling into pornography and masturbation every day for 20 years. He started praying more. He started using this card. He started getting to mass sometimes during the week. He went to confession regularly, like every 2 weeks or whatever. And the priest kept telling him, I was one of the priests. The priest kept telling him, "You are making progress. You are making progress, but it doesn't happen overnight." And so he persevered. And after about a year and a half, he came just about completely clean. He almost never falls now, almost never.
Wow. Wow. Now, was this the book that I was reading? Because I read this already a couple days ago. To replace it with virtue. Is that what's in this? Are you the
Said
one
again,
that
is
said
it?
that? Well, instead of just saying what not to do, telling them what they should do, which is what you kind of just exemplified, replacing
Yeah, I
it
agree.
with virtue.
I believe in that. And if you develop the virtue of chastity, it's totally different from self-control. While you're developing the virtue of chastity, you need self-control. And self-control is where you have a battle and you win. And that's great, but it's not a full virtue. Because Aristotle said a real virtue is where you do what's right, joyfully, easily, and promptly. So chastity is where your heart and mind are going in the same direction. So there's no fight, there's no conflict. Everybody's going in the same direction. And so that's the virtue you want. And a virtue is something you do joyfully. You don't have to struggle. Once you get a virtue, you're going to do what's good joyfully, easily, promptly.
Is there a difference for how a homosexual or someone struggling with same-sex attraction or a priest or a married person should attain chastity, or is it the same for each one of us?
Well, the overall dynamic is similar, but in each one, there's some differences. With a person that has same-sex attraction, they may also have to um, overcome the father wound, and then there's another thing called sports wound. Some of our courage guys, they still do it. Actually, they had a sports camp every summer. This was a weekend where they were doing all kinds of sports and healing the sports wound because when they were younger, they didn't get into sports and nobody picked them on their team. So, there are all kinds of elements that are particular to our
State in
state in
life.
life. As a priest, it's not only a matter of chastity, but it's also sometimes for priests can be a matter of loneliness and feeling sad about that they're not going to get married. But by the grace of God, I've only been lonely for about 20 minutes in the last 40 years. So because I'm always trying to focus on how I can help people get close to God and how I can pray a lot. I like to pray a lot because I need it. And people need to realize too that lay people can pray a lot too. My mother used to pray 15 mysteries of the Rosary every day in her 80s and go to Mass every day. And so Johnette Bankovic Williams, she told the story of her grandmother. Her grandmother had 13 grandchildren, and Johnette was one of them. And that grandmother prayed 13 rosaries every day, one for each of her grandchildren.
Wow.
And Jeanette attributes that as the reason why she came back to the faith, because she had drifted away from the faith. So people need to realize that we can't start with a lot of prayer, but we can have in our minds that we can pray as time goes on. We can increase our prayer and keep growing. And our Lord told St. Catherine of Siena, as long as you're in this life, you can always grow. You should grow. You should grow. And Bishop Sheen said there are no planes in the spiritual life. You're either going up or you're coming down. If you're not going up and getting more spiritual, then you're coming down just by the fact that you haven't moved up. So we have to continue to grow, but not too fast. Poco a poco, we need to grow in our spiritual life. And that's what all this is based on. You can't live a moral life without living a prayer life.
Yeah, it's so funny because it's so obvious and yet it's not.
That's
It
right.
makes sense. It's communication with God. Um, so did you ever have an interest in this topic before you started working with courage and encourage? Because you put in here, you've got
Uh,
men and chastity, you've got premarital sex and divorce, you've got all these stats, you've got the premarital cohabitation dilemma, you got hookups. And I don't know, how old are you? 65? I'm 60. You got to be in your 60s too, right? I mean, so you've been a priest for a long time and you weren't
yeah.
even part of the hookup
Well, we have
culture.
to preach about this stuff and help people. So we have to do that.
A lot of
And
people don't. A lot of priests
I'm
don't
sorry?
preach about. A lot of priests don't preach about this, and they should.
No, that's true. That's true. I do preach about it, and I leave those little cards in the vestibule. I said, pick up a card in the vestibule on the way out, and then also on the leaflet that we put together just a year ago that gives the story of two guys that overcame lust. So that gives people hope when they see other people have done it.
Yes.
Well, maybe I can do it too. So yeah, I mean, this is a tremendous. My attitude is this: when I ran track and I did the decathlon, my worst event was the hurdles. So I worked hard at the hurdles. All right. So now in the church today, what are the most difficult issues? Chastity, contraception, all these things that are and homosexuality. These are all big issues. So I said, well, those are the ones we're going to go after. I'm going to
Yeah.
talk about, learn about those, and try to explain to people why the church teaches what it teaches and how beautiful that teaching is.
Yeah. Well, let's get into some of the stuff that you have in here. What do you know about premarital sex and divorce? I mean, I can read what you have in here, but is
Yeah,
there
actually, yeah, they
correlation?
actually did a study, and they found that if people have premarital sex, they're more likely to be divorced, considerably more likely to be divorced than those who don't.
63% more likely to get
Yeah,
divorced.
yeah,
That's
60.
huge.
That's a lot. That's a lot. Yeah,
Yeah. And it
yeah,
said women are 76% more likely to divorce if they had premarital sex. I mean, that's
yeah.
staggering.
It's, isn't it interesting that the teaching of the Bible and the teaching of the church, it works. What a
It
surprise.
works. It works, Father. Yeah, it says, and you go off. So I'm going to let people buy this book and read it, but it explains why. Hookups, you have ever since the sexual revolution began in the 60s, this movement towards blocking the procreative aspect from sexual intimacy. And then you start talking about the advent of hookups. I had a radio show for 11 years before I went just to podcasts. And I invited some of my college students to come on, and they talked about the hookup culture. And I had some students on that were pro hooking up. And so I said, well, tell us the benefits of it. Tell us what hooking up is. And some of the rules, I don't know if you know this much, but some of the rules of hooking up is if you're not supposed to catch feelings. And if you catch feelings, you're the broken one. You're the problem. You're the one that broke the contract. If you hook up with someone and you wake up in the middle of the night or whatever time it is, you're supposed to leave without saying goodbye or, informing the other person, because it might involve a relationship. And they even
The
started,
thought.
there's a word that came out about 15 years ago called situationship. It's a situationship, friends with benefits. So this is the world's way of trying to normalize and name something that really didn't have a name. But when I found out you're supposed to not have feelings, and every female that came to me afterward, it's like, I'm the problem. I knew it was just a hookup, but I'm hurting and I shouldn't have caught feelings. So I would go and teach them, you can't not have feelings. Can you explain why?
Especially women, because women are connected to their feelings. And that's why women are generally more polite and generally more nurturing for people, because they're connected to their feelings. Men, see, men in some narrow sense, are more apt or more interested in hooking up than women, because men, to a degree, not completely, but to a degree, they can have sex with a woman and just walk away and never think about her again. So, but women are not like that. In fact, I don't know if it was in this book or another book, but I have a quote from a woman who wrote a book called Chastened, and she had 1 year where she tried to live chastely and have no sex. Her idea of being chaste is not quite like mine. She did a lot of other things without having sex. But anyway, she said in the book that I realized that I just can't do this. I have feelings, and I'm going against my femininity when I have sex outside of marriage. It's just not working, and I got attached to this guy, and I thought marriage was possible, and I just couldn't do it without denying a whole set of feminine values.
Yeah.
Women are just not like that. And that's why, and of course, what happens in a woman, and when she has sex, is it produces oxytocin in here, which is a bonding
Bonding
chemical.
hormone. Mhm.
Yeah, and so it produces oxytocin in men too, but testosterone blocks it. So there's no effect like that in a man. The effects is only in a woman. Of course, it's good for marriage because when people get married, they need all the oxytocin they can get
The
to stick
bond.
together.
Yeah.
So, but and also we recommend for married couples 20-second hugs. This is a North Carolina University study they did, and they found that when a man and a wife hug each other for 20 seconds, that produces oxytocin in the woman, and it also lowers her blood pressure and lowers her cortisol level. Cortisol is a stress hormone, and there's something similar that happens in men because I've been having couples groups for about 35 of my 43 years as a priest. And I meet with them every month and we discuss about how they can improve their marriage and how to become holy and so on. And one guy told me, Father, I love that 20-second hug. At about 13 or 14 seconds, I can feel all the stress of the day draining out of me. So,
Wow.
and I preached about it once. I preached about the importance of the 20-second hug. And one guy came up to me a week later and said, Father, my wife does not like that 20-minute hug. I said, 20 minutes? You probably aged your wife for 5 years with that one hug. It's 20 seconds. So,
It's funny. I had Dr. Joe Malone on my show, and he is an expert in women's sexual health. And he talks a lot of these things too. And one of the ways he expressed it was that a man, when he pursues a woman, his oxytocin is increasing, so his bonding hormone. And when she says no, it increases greatly. So when he pursues her again, his oxytocin keeps going up. So for a woman, when she has sex, her oxytocin shoots up and she's bonded. For a man, the more she says no, to a degree, right? You don't want to say no for the rest of your life. But as she says no, because the male brain is wired to pursue, to
oh,
provide,
that's
to
good. I
protect, to
hadn't heard
pursue.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So every time he goes after her and she says no, his oxytocin's increasing. So by the time he's bonded, he's like, I'm bonded to you. I need you. That's when he wants to propose. That's when he wants you because he bonds first and then he wants you. So if a woman gives a man sex, she stops that reaction. She stops
Right.
it. So he's like, oh, I pursued you. You gave me sex. Then it actually drops 10% each encounter after that, his attraction to her. So if that happens,
Who's the doctor that wrote this?
Dr. Joe Malone, I will connect you with him.
Joe Malone. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good.
So if we understand the science, because this world's just trying to say, oh, you Christians, you Catholics, you're all just about God and you want to say no to everything. No, when you put it on top of the science, you understand why.
That's it. That's it.
Hookups are not good. It benefits the male who really wants sex anyway. He doesn't want much more than that for the most part. I mean, he
So
wants
nature
relationship.
has set things up very nicely to fulfill the moral law. That's beautiful.
Yes. Yes. So, okay, let me read one more of your quotes in here. Okay, so now I'm in your chapter, Father, on the premarital cohabitation dilemma. And it starts out with saying the number of couples who choose to live together without marriage has risen dramatically in the past 50 years from near zero to 60%. So 6 out of 10 people are saying we need to live together before we marry. And for Catholics, sadly, it's 50%. Why do people cohabit and why should they not?
Well, they asked the question in one of our conferences we gave, and one girl said, why do, we when we buy a car, we try it out before we buy it. So why can't we try each other out? And then I said to her, well, when you go for a car, you go for the cheapest price, right? and then you drive it for a few years, and you turn it in and get another car. Is that the way we want to treat people? But in fact, as you just read, or would have been a couple of lines beyond what you read, is that it doesn't. You would think it would be helpful. I mean, that's the obvious conclusion that people make. Well, if we try it out, that way we'll find out if it's going to work. But the fact is that the statistics show that your divorce rate is higher if you cohabitate before marriage, which is really quite interesting. But it's considerably higher if you cohabitate. So people wonder why there are all these divorces. Well, because we're doing things wrong, and we're defying our own science, our
Yeah.
own way of being.
Ways we were wired.
So it's you would think it would be good, but it's not. It's not. Sometimes things, and we go against God's law again. We have to pay the price.
Here's one of the things too. I have a friend, she's a Christian sex therapist. She's not Catholic yet, but we'll get her. And she said, people are saying, we need to try it out, as you just said. And usually what they're referring to is sex. So we need to see if we're sexually compatible. And so even if you go with just using the animalistic sex, okay, so let's assume the crazy belief that you're having sex every day, which even the happiest of couples aren't. And what do you take? About 20 minutes every day. What do you do with the other 23 hours and 40 minutes? So
what do you do with what?
The other 23 hours and 40 minutes in
That's
your
right.
day.
That's right.
So you want to check out sex to see if you're compatible there, but why not the communication? Why not the sharing of bills and intimate thoughts and vacationing together, meeting other people's families? And
there's a richness to a human person. And we have to help people realize that there's beautiful richness and dignity in every person. They're deep. They're not shallow. And they don't want to be shallow.
Yeah, and I don't want to be cheapened or taken for granted either. Yeah. So another thing in terms of what you were saying, moving in together, what a lot of people don't pay attention to is the fact that when we fall in love, you're probably aware of it. I have about 80 pages left, so I didn't finish it. So I don't remember if you have it or not. But there is a love cocktail that has been found out, the 11 hormones that come together to kind of make you fall in love in the beginning, the oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin, vasopressin, and all of these things make you madly in love with this person, hyper fixated on this other person. So that is going to wear off in 6 months to 2 years.
Absolutely.
Even if you're with the most perfect person.
Sometimes it takes 5 years, but yeah.
Right. And if you can be that lucky, that would be great. But when we cohabit, so in a good marriage, you experience that at the beginning of the marriage, and then you get honeymoon, you get married, then the problems and the tensions start. And that's when you're like, okay, but we're bonded, we're married, we're going to work this out. What my theory is on cohabitation is you have all these happy feelings and the love hormone, so you move in with each other, and then you experience all the hardships of what it would be like to be a couple before you're committed. So then you're like, why should I commit? You stink in the morning, you don't brush your teeth, you click your...
You leave your clothes on the floor, yeah.
Yeah, and so no one will get married, or if they do, they get divorced because they don't like it. When it defeats the whole, no, let's figure that out after we are committed to each other. And that bonding, this commitment mindset tells me we will have to work through that. Whereas if we're just living together, we just quit.
That's right. I can just walk away. Yeah. And people need to realize that a person is so much more than their physical attributes. There's this wonderful beauty of a person. And it's so nice to, I think of it when some of my friends and some of my friends who were mothers and wives and so on. And so I visit with them sometimes, and sometimes we do confession or whatever. And I say, it's so nice just to connect with this person and just hear this person's story and be with him, and then walk away and saying, "That was nice, Lord, thank you." But I don't need it now because um, I have you. I have you, Lord. So, but it was nice, and it's a sign of the intimacy that we'll have with God and His kingdom, and it'll be very nice. And of course, in the kingdom, there's no time, so everything happens at once. So that's going to be a beautiful thing. I say to people at church sometimes when I'm preaching, have you ever hugged somebody and wished it could last forever? Well, in heaven, you can do that. And you can do 100,000 other things all at the same time. So
And the
heaven is going
goodness
to be,
never wears off.
yeah, there's no time in heaven. Bishop Sheen is big on that. Yeah, yeah. There's no time. So you don't run out of anything. You never get tired. You know, you never,
There are no calories. You never get fat.
that's right. That's right. Nobody gets, well, I told one guy, a priest that was, uh, kind of attracted to this woman. And I said, just remember, if you marry God, God never gets old and he never gets fat. So
That's the truth. That is the truth. So, achieving chastity in an unchaste world. I want people to get their hands on this, and we're going to tell them where. So, obviously, SophiaInstitute.com, but you've written other books as well.
yeah.
And are they
So
also through Sophia, or those are ones through cfalive.com?
all of our books are on cfalive.com, our website.
C
And
as in Christ, F as in Father.
C in Catholic, F is in faith, alive, cfalive.com. And they're all there on the at a discount, considerable discount. And also all leaflets are there. And I wrote a booklet on the rosary, and also I wrote a book on the Stations of the Cross. So they're all there. They're
Yeah,
all
I
there.
always like to promote Sophia first because they're the ones that gave you to me. Right.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
SophiaInstitute.com, you can get this book and many others. But I definitely wanted to make sure they knew that if they want to follow you, you've written more than just this book. And they can follow you and get to your blog. As you said, cfalive.com. You've got leaflets. And there's no shipping charges. So that's pretty exciting there
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. There's no charge for shipping. Yeah.
Where are you a pastor? Where are you a priest?
I'm not a pastor. I'm actually a retired priest, quote, retired,
Yeah.
at St. Raphael's Church in Rockville, Maryland, half hour outside of DC.
Excellent. So they're keeping you busy even though you're retired, right?
Yeah, well, I act a little bit more like a parochial vicar than a retired priest, but
Yeah.
I love what I'm doing, so I don't want to stop doing it.
What's your favorite part about being a priest?
Two things. Number one, saying the holy sacrifice of the Mass. And the second one is hearing confessions, because that's a wonderful way to interact with people and really help people. And people that go to confession are our holiest people. The holiest people we have in our parish, in any parish, are the people that go to confession regularly, like at least every month.
Yeah, I would agree. And there are people, and maybe I'll give a plug to you guys going to see your priest. There are people that come to me and they have told me to the average person, the craziest stories of things that they have done.
Yeah.
And they always say, "You've never heard anything like this before." And I'm always like, "I've heard everything before." There are things that when I was a little girl didn't think existed, and I heard those things. So I'm trying to make a plug to the priest. There is nothing that a priest has not heard. He's heard perverted things, he's heard evil things, he's heard shameful things, but he's also, by God's grace, been able to absolve you. Christ absolved you through him.
It's a lot more interesting than any television show you could ever watch.
Yeah, but please go to confession. I know Satan is trying to tell you don't go or don't confess this sin or that sin. There's such a liberating feeling because you are taking Satan right off of your back, and those sins are just forever, forgotten. And that's a beautiful thing. And, I think chastity or being unchaste is one of the number one sins most people confess based on what I have heard.
Big time. Big time.
Yeah. And you're a priest, you know it.
Yeah. And the guys that were successful that I wrote about in that little leaflet, they kept going to confession. They didn't stop going to confession. And people don't realize, we have to tell people this. If you are in a state of mortal sin with your family, you're embarrassed not to go to communion. You wait till everybody in your family goes up. You let them all go up first, then you go up after, and you cross your hands in X shape across your breast, and the priest or the deacon will give you a blessing, and then you go back. And a lot of people need to know that so that they won't feel pressured to go to communion when it's really a sacrilegious communion, and it's a big sin, big sin.
Yeah, it is, and people don't know that. What do you do? This is a little bit off the book, but same topic. When people who you know are living together are in like a fake second marriage, but they haven't gotten an annulment, which means they're legally bound to their first spouse. And so many of them go up to communion and no one stops them anymore. I would say 90%, of them go to communion. What do you do as a priest when you know that? Has it gotten to a point where you're like, I'm just going to give them communion, make them make that decision? Or
Well, I have to do that. I have to, in public, I have to give communion when somebody comes up for communion. Okay, I can't say, hey, what are you doing here? Go back. But sometimes I'll tell them after, come on, give me a call. Let's work on this so that you can do this properly. And sometimes I have close friends that are living in sin. There was one girl that I worked with a long time, and she married a guy, and she wasn't married before, and she married a guy outside the church. And every so often I tell her, I'm praying for you. I'm praying that you be converted and you'll get back. But you can't overdo that because people will turn you out completely.
Yeah.
But I heard a story once, a beautiful story of a priest on the streets of London. And there was a streetwalker walking along. And she went by the priest, and the priest looked back and said, please try not to hurt Jesus anymore. And that's all he said. And when she got sick and she got near death, she asked for that priest to come and give her the sacraments. So she was very happy that he did that. So one of the spiritual works of mercy is to warn the sinner.
Yeah.
To warn the sinner. And so St. Augustine said, if you don't warn a sinner when you should, it's partly your sin.
Yeah, it is. It says that in the Bible.
That scares me.
Yeah, it does. So, we do our best. Fill in the blank. When I die, I will know my life has been a success if.
You'll know what?
This is your filling in the blank. When I, Father Morrow, die, I will know my life has been a success if.
If I've saved a lot of souls, and also I have a project of getting souls out of purgatory. I offer all the indulgences I can to get souls out of purgatory, and I know that they're going to pray for me when they get out. And people should do this. And so when I get to heaven, I hope to meet a big crowd of people saying, "Thank you so much. You got us out of purgatory early." And I hope to meet a lot of those people then. And
yes,
I really want to get a lot of them out as long as I get an indulgence. There are all kinds of indulgences that people can get. And one of the easiest ones is to listen to the sermon on Sunday, listen to the homily. Another one is when you walk into church and dip your hand in the holy water, say in your heart, in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, amen. So there are a lot of these little things you can do. And then there's, of course, plenary indulgences, and that's a whole different subject, but those are available to people.
So when I do this, when I just walk in, I can say, give this to a poor soul?
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't have to say that. Just say.
But in my heart, I can say that.
Just make a general intention that whatever brings an indulgence, Lord, please get it and give it to the souls in purgatory.
That's a good prayer.
I've consecrated my life to Mary, so I ask her, you know where it should go. Please put it there.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, then happy vigil of the Feast of the Assumption. So tomorrow we'll be celebrating that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, again, I want to let everyone watching, please get this book. This is one you can just pass on to your kids that are dating or engaged and say, just follow this before you make too many mistakes. Of course, you're in the world and maybe your child's had premarital sex. Maybe your friend's already living with someone. Give this to them and they can always change their decisions. Achieving Chastity in an Unchaste World. You can get it at sophiainstitute.com. You can also get it and the other books that Father Morrow has written at cfalive.com. There's a link in the show notes right there to both of them, so you don't have to worry about it if you've forgotten it. Father writes a blog, and the link to the blog is in CF Alive as well. And so remember, he's got discounts there, no shipping charge for things that you get out of that website. You can follow me on social media channels like Facebook, X, I always slow down at this point, Instagram, TikTok, and a couple other places. I'd love to have you like and subscribe, share my shows with friends, because God really does bring me great guests like Father Morrow. And we're trying to win souls one podcast at a time. Let's just get them into heaven. That's what we need to do. So, and of course, always go to my website, breakfastwithbacon.com, and subscribe to my newsletter. All right. So Father, let's see how much he can remember here telepathically. All right. I'm Dr. Christine Bacon. You've been watching Breakfast with Bacon, and I'd like to remind you always to live your life. Do you remember what to say?
With with lots of
with lots of bacon, sunny side up.
sunny side up, sunny side up.